when you're having anxiety, the very physiological way to calm this down is putting an ice pack to your chest or the back of your neck to calm the vagus nerve. That's going to give a sense of calm. That's going to calm the nervous system. Other ways that you can do this is finding something that you found calming, or just like, when people say like, "Oh, watch your comfort show." Go
Mm-hmm.
watch it because you know
Yes.
what's gonna happen. You're not gonna have anxiety because you don't know what's gonna happen in the end. Obviously, you've watched this 3 times, you know what's gonna happen. Doing self-care is a big one. Having that routine, having something to distract yourself.
Yeah.
Distracting yourself is probably the number one. Like, other than the ice pack, other than the physiological thing that you can do, distracting yourself is going to be the next thing. Let's dive in.
Yes. Kate,
So
how are you doing?
how am I doing? I'm doing so much better than I was last week. For people who do not know what happened last week, I had the stomach bug, but I think it was more of anxiety attack throughout the week, just because of all these things, new work, traveling, a bunch of different things. So I was experiencing a lot of anxiety last week, which is awful, but we got through it. We had so many friends, so many family that were there for me, and I appreciate that. And I was so, so, so happy when Justin texted me. He
Yeah.
texted me and he checked up on me, and that meant the entire world to me. I can't even explain how good that felt for me, because it felt like, wow, my boss actually cares about me. That's really nice. I haven't had that since ever, I don't think, really.
Yeah.
So that was really, really nice.
That is so nice. I think one thing as well, like I know JM gets like a reputation for being like super hardo and like he's hard on his people because he wants a lot for them, but like he does care very deeply about his like employees, if you will, like his coaches and like the people that he works with. And even as just like as a friend, like if he knows something's going on, like he'll text you, he'll be the one to call you, pick up the phone. And we used to do wellness check-ins every other Tuesday because he would just get a nice little report on like how's our mental health doing? Like how are we doing? And like that's when, if I'm saying I'm having a tough mental health time, like he'll always be like, "Oh, what can we do to like delegate?" And like that was also a big part of like why we hired Matthias. And like so like he does care deeply like about everybody's mental health. So I love that. That made me happy when he reached out.
I know, yeah, that meant the world to me. I was so, so grateful for that. And so going back to the anxiety, I had an anxiety attack. It was almost more like a panic attack throughout the entire week. Some of the symptoms of a panic attack is like you get numb in the face and you get really bad like trembling and all these things, and just kind of thoughts of like depression and all of these things. So that's what was going on with me. But I've actually experienced that since I was you know what? Actually, that's a lie. I've experienced that since I was first feeling of that was in 4th grade, which
Mhm.
is yeah,
Wow.
which when you're how old are you in 4th grade? 10? You
Yeah,
don't know what's going on.
yeah,
You
you
don't
don't
know
know.
what
Oh
no
God.
idea. So, I've had anxiety for most of my life, which comes from my mother, comes from my sister. It's a family thing. Most people in our family have anxiety. But I think the way I learned how to cope with it
Mhm.
was especially important because it clearly affected me way more than my sister, my mother, my cousin, like all these things. So, yeah. Have you experienced anxiety throughout your life?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I would say I didn't really know it was anxiety until I was like much older. So kind of like to your point, like I think like obviously when I lost my dad, there was a lot of emotions that came up with that. And there was definitely grieving and like depression, but then there was anxiety like about this is so sad to say, But I used to think my mom was going to die like every day. So I would be so nervous, like going to school and being like, is my mom going to be dead when I get home? Which is like such an irrational like fear to
Like an
have.
intrusive thought. Those are big. Those
And
are
so, yeah,
big
like
symptom of it. Yeah.
that's it. So like I feel like that's when my anxiety started, like as a kid. It was probably around then. And it was like the fear of my mom dying because I just didn't understand. And then I would like go to sleepovers and I would never make it through the night because I was so afraid that my mom was gonna die when I was at the sleepover. So I would be like, Mom, you need to come get me. Or if she didn't answer the phone, I would panic. So that's where my anxiety started. But then it got real bad in college. Like grad school, that was the lowest low I think I'd ever been mentally. And I had a lot of difficulty managing it. I thought about reaching out to therapist. I had considered medication and I waited on the medication because I was like, well, I think once this ends, I will be okay. Um, I was very close though to trying some sort of medication and then pursuing therapy at that time. But it sounds sad. I just like really didn't have the time when I was doing the MSDI and working. It's just like there was nothing. But that was probably the height of my anxiety, if you will,
Yeah.
was MSDI.
So you never went on medication. You never
No,
did.
I never went on medication. I am open to it. Like I am definitely like a big, like if you need medication to manage your anxiety or your depression or whatever mental health, related item you're working through, I think it can be a great tool for people that have like tried like all the things, exercise and like, making sure that you're creating downtime and meditating and journaling and all these things. And um, I think it can be a great tool for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah. I started medication when I think I was just entering high school.
Okay.
It might have been 8th grade entering high school.
How did
And
you feel about making that decision?
so I felt that like I saw my mom takes medication, like everyone in my family takes
Yeah.
medication. And my mom actually steered me away from it for a long time. She was
Mhm.
like, "Baby, try yoga. Like I know what's happening with you. Like try these things first before you get on medication because once you get on medication, it's really hard to get off of it.
Yeah.
Really hard to like wean yourself off and be okay off of it when you were on it for so long."
Yeah.
So we tried yoga, we tried exercise, we tried all these different things like self-care every night. Like we made a routine, all these things.
Yeah.
Nothing really worked for me, so I went to my doctor and I said, "This is what's happening with me. I don't know what's going on. I need to fix this right now because I can't not do this much longer."
Yeah.
Like basically saying like I cannot live like this. And I'm
No,
13. Like
so hard.
and I know it's awful. And she was like, "Okay, we'll start you on Prozac." Prozac is like the entry. Is a very like entry level one. And I was on that for 3 years. It was
Okay.
a couple of years. I was on that one. You start off with like 10, then you go to 20, then you go to 50, then you go to 100, all these things. So I ended up at 50 and I was like, this isn't working for me. I was like, I don't think this is working for me. Like I feel like almost resistant to it. Like same feelings are happening. So we went on Celexa. I was only on that for like a couple months. I'm like, this one definitely doesn't work for me because I'm like really feeling anxious. And
Okay.
then finally we went to Zoloft and I was like, okay, this seems like it's working.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with this. If it seems like it's kind of working, then okay.
Can
But
I
mhm,
can I ask you a question?
mhm.
So when you were kind of like trying those different meds, when you were like, I could tell it wasn't working, can you like elaborate a little bit on like what was coming up for you, like what you were feeling and what you were experiencing?
Yeah, I was like feeling still very, very anxious about every single thing that I
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
I would I didn't get my license until I was 18.
Yeah.
So I was anxious about driving. I was anxious about what you said about your mother. I was anxious about my father dying all the time. Um, I had like so many intrusive thoughts. Not like, oh, I'm gonna kill my family. It wasn't like that. It was more like
Not a serial killer. It's just
I'm not
anxious.
a serial killer. It was very like, oh my god, what if my dad leaves the house and doesn't come back because he got in a car accident? Like I would be texting him constantly.
Mhm.
I was 15, 16. He used to go to, well, he still does. He goes to like these conventions in Florida for his like hobby. He collects pocket watches, which is so cute. I love that he does that. and I'd still get like, I still get this way. It's not as bad as I was. This is what happened in fourth grade is he went to a convention and he was gone for maybe 3 or 4 days, and I cried the entire time. I was so upset, and I was so upset that he would like leave like that
Yeah.
and all these things. There's a whole nother component that goes into that, but it was it's almost feeling like even more anxious that I'm on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you start the medication that's going to work for you, you almost feel like, okay, I can take a deep breath. I know what's going on. You're more aware of what's happening.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
you're able to make those decisions better.
I see. Okay.
So in how am I trying to say this? It's like you'll realize you're spiraling, you can get yourself out of it.
Okay.
But when you're on a medication that doesn't work for you, you spiral and you cannot get yourself out of it.
I see. Okay. Oh, that's like it's almost like you're stuck in a way when you're on like the med that isn't the right fit for you, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So the reason I ask, well, because I'm genuinely curious about your experience too, but I have a client that I recently I speak with her like one-on-one every week, and we're working through some body image stuff, relationship with food stuff. Long story short, she has probably the most severe anxiety I've ever witnessed from a person, and that's saying something. I've seen a lot. And this poor girl, like she came off medication, and she like was so proud that she came off meds, and I was like, absolutely support that, like whatever you want to do, but she's been absolutely miserable since coming off the meds. And we had a conversation kind of like heart to heart, like, let's make an appointment, go see your psych, see if we can go get tested for like OCD and a few other things because she had some signs and symptoms of that. And long story short, she ended up going on a different medication, a different SSRI, and we're gonna like see how that works. And she's going on Prozac. I don't know what she was on. Well, I think I do know. I think she was maybe on Lexapro previously, but she's going on Prozac now. So
Lexapro has a rep of being very almost like numbing. Very like have you
yeah,
ever heard of that? Like someone says that, oh my God, I'm just so numb to the world. I don't feel anything. Lexapro does.
yeah, so she was very afraid that she'd feel like that. And I was like, well, there's different ones. And I'm not a pharmacist, so I can't like know all the ins and outs. But I was like, I think there's probably another option for you to like help you manage like this really intense anxiety that you're sitting with all the time. Like what you just kind of explained, like kind of like racing thoughts, intrusive thoughts. It's like never ending cycle of like anxiety. And like she definitely is living with that. So she just started like on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works for her.
Prozac is a mainly anxiety. Most of them are anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Prozac is mostly anxiety, like to fix that.
Yeah.
Which should be good for her.
Yeah.
If trying there's different ways. Trying new medication is always good
Mm-hmm.
because if you're not trying different medication, what if that one's not working for you? You know what I mean?
Right. And how do you know what like is the best fit for you to like make you feel the best too? So it's like,
But
yeah.
it's a process. It's definitely a process. You have to like
That's
wean yourself off of that one, stop for a little bit, then put yourself on the other one, which
yeah,
is it's a long process.
exhausting. That is exhausting.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
glad that you found something that like works good for you now.
I know. Yeah, thank the Lord. Honestly, when I stopped it, I was very much like, okay, like I feel like I'm in a really good place. I feel like I'm a really good place. And this almost goes like back to when we talk about alcohol. You know, when you're a really good place, you're like, okay, let me get another drink. Same with here, like, okay, let me just stop completely with my medication. And that's not how you do it. It's not. Trust me, because I went through it. That's not what you do. It is not recommended.
It's not recommended. She did try for all of you to know what the experience was, to
I
then tell you to not do that, to do it a
do
different.
please wean yourself off of it. Do not completely stop, especially when it was I mine's pretty high dose, so it's like when you stop it, you're like, "Oh, fuck."
Well, I was gonna say, like, it's funny because the meds probably help you feel better, like make the anxiety manageable, right? So then it's like, oh yeah, I don't need this anymore. And then it's like I
I'm
come off and it's like,
scared.
oh wait,
Yeah.
I
Wait.
might.
That's yeah. So that's me. But for people who don't know what anxiety is, because I feel like anxiety is very almost brushed off in a way in society. It's it's seen as just, oh, you're worrying about something. Stop being so stressed. Relax, relax, relax. When someone says that to someone with anxiety, do you know how aggravating it is? I am sure
Exactly.
so like many people that are listening that have anxiety have been told to be like just relax, just relax. No, you can't just
I
do
could
that.
just relax, I would.
If if that was an option, of course that would be my first go-to, but clearly I cannot shut my brain off. Is it totally impossible to shut your brain off when you have racing thoughts. And then
Mhm.
when someone says relax, it almost elevates it and been like, okay, now I'm mad and I'm anxious.
Right, right, adding
So
fuel to the fire.
yeah, it's crazy. So the way I would define anxiety is this feeling of fear. It's a feeling of fear of everything.
Mhm.
Um, whether it be health related, it's social like society related. Um, it's a fear of being present and worrying about something that's happening,
Mm,
no matter what.
yeah.
No matter if you're in a really, really calm place, if you have like really bad anxiety, you can be worrying about, oh my God, what if I slip and fall on this rock? Like that's the thoughts that like run through your head. And it's hard to stop that.
Mm. Mhm.
I'd be
I
interested in hearing you talk about like any misconceptions of
yeah,
anxiety. Have you ever experienced that like with any of your clients or
yeah.
outside?
I would say, like, misconceptions about anxiety is that you can, like, have it all together, like, have your job, your school you're done, have it all together and not have anxiety. I think I don't wanna say I'm a great example of that, but yeah, in some ways, like, I have a lot of anxiety. It's much better now. It's much better now because my life has changed a lot since I was at my peak of anxiety, but, like, when I was going through my MSDI, like, it looked like everything was all good, like, I had it all together, and, like, I was doing the school, I was doing the internship, I was working, like, making all those things happen, training, and I was happy, but I was very anxious. And I think people think that you have to be like depressed and anxious at the same time. And I definitely think I had a sprinkle of depression in there because I was so burnt out. But like generally, I was a pretty happy person in comparison. And I feel like happy people can live with anxiety, happy people can live with depression. Um, and it's one of those things where I think it's really misunderstood in terms of like my anxiety might present different than Kate's anxiety. And we might be anxious about different things, but we both live with a form of anxiety, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I find for a lot of my clients that have anxiety or depression or some sort of like OCD tendency, um, they tend to have difficulty with accepting help for it, if that makes sense. Like taking the medication can sometimes be a very hard decision.
Mhm.
Reaching out to help for therapy can be a very hard decision. Even acknowledging that they may have that diagnosis and maybe they haven't received a formal diagnosis yet, that can be hard for them. So I think there's still a lot of stigma around anxiety and like mental health.
Yeah. It's 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 in everyone. I think that every single person has anxiety. I think that. But some people don't know what it is. Some people don't like they're just like, "Oh, yeah, like I get like intrusive thoughts once in a while, but like that's nothing. Like that's normal." That is what anxiety is. That's literally what anxiety is, and I think it's a very like a bodily function almost, and some people's are heightened and some people's are lower, but
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
everyone really has it, and I think there's not enough education on it. Absolutely not. Like there needs to be more.
I agree. And I think like, and I am a big advocate for meds. Like, I think meds are great
Mhm.
and a lot of people do need them and it's great that we have them. But I think a lot of people think that's their only option. Like they have to default to the meds and like rather than, try other things, like kind of like what you experimented with, where you said you were trying like yoga and the exercise and all these things. Like I feel like people don't realize what their options are to them to manage it. And that would be nice to kind of break down the barriers. I feel like I don't see a lot of like informative stuff out there regarding I don't want to say like natural ways to treat anxiety, but yeah, like kind of natural ways to treat anxiety.
That kind of goes into my next point of like coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
So like effective strategies to like deal with this anxiety in your life.
Mhm.
The When you're having anxiety, the very physiological way to calm this down is putting an ice pack to your chest or the back of your neck to calm the vagus nerve. That's going to give a sense of calm. That's going to calm the nervous system. Other ways that you can do this is finding something that you found calming, or just like, when people say like, oh, watch your comfort show. Go watch your comfort show, because you know
Yes.
what's going to happen. You're not going to have anxiety because you don't know what's going to happen in the end. Obviously, you've watched this 3 times, you know what's going to happen.
Wait, okay, I want to know, what's your comfort show? I think I know. We talked about this last week, but what's your comfort show?
um Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a big one,
I don't
because
even think I know that show.
really, oh my god, it's kind of like The Office in a way, but it's like
Really? Okay.
police. Yeah. What did I say my comfort show was? I forget.
I'll have to go back into our text. I feel like it was, oh shoot, I'm
Oh
terrible.
wait, a movie would be The Other Guys,
That's okay. I think it was a
with
movie.
Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, because I can recite that movie. Oh, SpongeBob.
SpongeBob is a comfort show for sure.
SpongeBob, I can quote SpongeBob front to back.
Dude, my comfort show is Step Brothers.
Step
Every time
Brothers. I think you told me that. Yes, I think that's the conversation. You were like, you
I was
should
like,
watch. You
find a
should watch.
comfort show, and I watch Step Brothers, so I don't know. That's just like my comfort show. It always makes me laugh. I've seen it 50,000 times, but it
Yeah.
never gets not funny to me. I know it's probably old for a lot of people, but I love it.
No, that's a classic. It's a classic.
It goes out of style. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
So, um, like watching comfort shows, doing self care is a big one. Having that routine, having something to distract yourself.
Yeah.
Distracting yourself is probably the number one. Like, other than the ice pack, other than the physiological thing that you can do, distracting yourself is going to be the next thing. Because when
Yeah.
you distract yourself, your mind is then filled with whatever you're doing, and it's not the racing thoughts that are happening and all the intrusive thoughts that are happening.
What
So,
is your favorite self-care to like help when you're feeling anxious?
an everything shower. So I'll get a
Yes.
shower, I'll shave my legs. Oh, I'll do a mask after. I'll like tone my hair purple shampoo. And then I do all of my skincare. I'll take at least an hour to do my skincare.
I love that. I love that. I
What's your
agree. Definitely right there with you. Everything shower, unless like I'm feeling stressed and I'm low on time, then that is not what's going to make me feel better. But I will say
yeah.
self tanner, like when I set aside time to do like an exfoliate, like self tan night, there's just a ritual to it that is just nice. So I like that too.
Oh my god, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I would say distracting yourself, self-care is definitely a big one. Um, so anxiety is very fight or flight. Like, that's also a way to like describe it. It's fight or flight most of the time. So when you're giving yourself that structure in that routine, it's going to reduce the stress. It's almost like a form of meditation. You know, when people do like guided meditation, that
Mhm.
sometimes helps. But like when you're in this routine and you're doing something that you love, it's like, oh, it's not so hard to just do this. You don't have to think about it too hard.
Yeah.
So another thing is, a lot of people a lot of people think that like doing like a full self-care night is like a 3-hour routine. That
Mhm.
When you're dedicating yourself to a self-care night, you like, okay, this is what I'm going to do tonight. When it's that long, it's almost like stress inducing for
Yeah.
that, because you're like, oh shit, like I have to dedicate 3 hours of my life to do this right now. Like, no, you don't. It can be as easy as making your bed. You could just
Yes.
take a quick shower. You could brush your hair. Like, that's self-care. That counts as it.
Absolutely. I agree. I think you're right. Like if you have to have this daunting task at the end of the night that it's going to take you 2 to 3 hours, you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. It's like
Yeah.
I'm going to evening.
I just
Um,
want to like sleep in my bed and
yeah,
eat popcorn while I fall asleep. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that could be self-care too. If you want to do that, go right ahead.
yes. Question for you. Have you ever found success with guided meditation or any form of meditation?
Um, when focusing, when I need to focus on my breath, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
When
love med.
that's when I'm like, it's almost like the beginning of the panic attack. I know I'm having a panic attack and I need to like slow my breathing. Putting
Mhm.
something on like that is telling you to breathe in, hold it, and breathe out. That helps me a ton.
Yes, I love that. I think it's one of the most effective ways. Like when you're in a moment of literal panic attack coming on, that's one thing you have in your control that you can kind of manipulate is that breath work. And if you
Mhm.
can like find a guided meditation to walk you through it, if your mind can't focus on its own, like it can be such a nice little tool in the toolbox.
Yeah. There was actually I have a quick little story. One time in college, I had a panic attack in the middle of a party, and it was
Oh,
awful. It was I like because my friend was like yelling at me, like she was mad at me. She was yelling at me, and all of a sudden, it was like a click. I heard the music. When you're having anxiety attack, your sensory is like way up. So
mm,
there was this moment of just, oh my god, like I'm in a party and it's really loud, and I started doing this, and I start hyperventilating, and I'm on a couch. You know when you stand on couches when you're like at this party, you're like elevated surfaces. I'm standing on this couch
oh.
doing this, being like looking at eyes wide open. I was like, "What do I do? What do I do?" So she immediately knows that I'm in panic attack. She's like, "Oh my god, I'm yelling at her in the middle of this party, and she's having a panic attack now. Like, I have to fix that." So that was very nice of her. She like guided me down from that. We went to this tiny little corner
Yeah.
of. Have you ever in Merrimack? Did you ever go into like the townhouses? Do you know what those look like?
Yes, they're like in the back, I believe, or
Yeah.
in the back of the
Well,
campus.
they're like where the quad was.
Yes, the quad. Yeah.
So there's this little like divot where a sink is,
Yeah.
and there was no one in. Thank God, this party was packed, but there was no one in this little divot. So me and her go in here, and I'm sitting on the ground underneath the sink doing this, and the lights are off. And then all of a sudden, some guy comes over, turns the lights on, was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I just completely just yell. I didn't say a word. I just said, "Ah!" And then he turns the light. You're like, "What the fuck?" Like, what? So then he turns the lights off, and she was yelling at him. She was like, "Don't turn the fucking lights on." And to bring it back to this, she was helping me breathe, and I would like needed that really bad. So like even when your phone's not accessible to get guided meditation, having someone that knows your coping mechanisms and knows how to calm you down is going to help so much, because if if you don't have the phone accessible, you can't like focus on your breathing. Having someone there to almost guide you, like a in-person guide to help you breathe. And she was doing this. She was doing like inhale and then exhale.
Yeah.
So it was like helping me so much. And the whole reason I was in this panic attack was because she was yelling at me. So it was a very weird dynamic.
That is a weird dynamic.
Yeah. But she like it was very nice of her to like actually like calm me down.
Right.
Like
Well, you guys are friends. I'm sure whatever you guys were fighting about was not that
like
serious.
stupid, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um
well, that goes out the window. Oh, that's so sad. You sitting on the ground. Ah,
I literally screamed. I was
I
like,
can picture it, which is not funny that you were having a panic, but it's just
my
now.
eyebrows were like this. I'm like,
But oh my God.
so yeah, that happened. Do you have any stories of like having an anxiety attack of like in public? Have you ever had an anxiety attack in public?
Oh, in public. I don't know if it was in public. So, okay. So there's been a couple of times where I've taken an edible that was way too
Mm.
high dosage, which is a little separate than a typical anxiety attack. But you do have an anxiety attack when you take a very high edible dosage. I had accidentally done this to myself a couple of times. One time I was in high school and we were, okay, here's one. So kids in high school don't do this. I'm not the best example to like follow, but in high school, we had all night grad at Tech. So instead of drinking, all my friends, we were more like pothead people. So we would take edibles or we would smoke weed. So like we all took a 100 milligram edible. We were in high
All
school.
of you?
We all did. Because Scotty, this kid Scotty, I almost Scotty, he at the time was like the guy, like, and he was our friend, like, and he was the guy that was supplying to lots of people their edibles, their weed, whatever. So he hooked us up for all night grad. So all of our friends had this 100 meg edible. So we all take it. And like we are like going throughout the night and they have like these like, I don't know, like it's almost like it was like a blow up slide and like a blow up thing. I don't know. You could like do like sword fighting basically with these
Oh
blue.
yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was doing. And I had this edible. And we ended up like taking that, whatever. And like in the middle of that, it like hit me. And it hit me like a truck. And I was like, oh my God. And so I got knocked over because we were doing these little sword fights. And then after that, I was done. And then I remember there was a raffle for a Vera Bradley bag. And I go, they summoned us all out to the cafeteria. And I go, if I win this bag, I am gonna not be able to go get it. Like I was not ready to go
Yeah.
up to the teachers and go get this. I won the freaking raffle. And so I'm like having I had a panic attack when I had to go pick up the Vera Bradley bag. So I was like, I'm gonna get kicked out of all night grad. They're gonna know I'm off of an edible. My eyes were red and galore.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it just, yeah, I looked like I was on an edible. And then I go get the bag and I couldn't even make eye contact. I remember feeling so nervous. And then I was fine the rest of the night. But then there was an edible on the ground. So then all of my friends and us, we were like, oh no, whose is that? We got to get it off the floor. And we had to, it was this whole thing. So I think that was probably my real first like panic attack was when I got called up for that Vera Bradley bag. But I use it every year for vacation. You will see it. So yeah.
That's hilarious. The
Yeah.
fact that you were like, oh my God, like if I win this, like out of how
Oh, I
many
know.
people did you graduate with? Like that's like a
A lot, like a
yeah.
lot of people.
How did you like speak that into existence?
It's like I knew. I was like, if I get called up right now, and then it was like, yeah, Kelly Igo, you win. I was like, no. I was like, I'm not getting it. And John was
Can
like,
someone
yeah,
else pick this up for me? I would have
yeah,
had someone else do it. I'm like,
literally.
she's sleeping. Sorry.
So that was, but again, that was a little different than a typical. I've never had like a true anxiety attack out of nowhere, except maybe one time when I was taking some sort of allergy med that had like Sudafed in it, and it was like a prescription allergy med because I have really bad allergies. And I was taking this biochem test, and I was having a mental breakdown. But I don't know, that one was like maybe more so just having a mental breakdown. But yeah, that's my
Totally get
experience.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to like for people that don't obviously know like the actual physiological um response in the body when anxiety happens. It is this part of your brain called I can never say this amygdala.
Amygdala.
Amygdala. Yeah, amygdala. Uh,
Yeah, no, amygdala. And I can't say anything else, so don't ask me to say anything else, but I can say
yeah,
that.
right. Yeah. That's like the one word I can't say. So that's going to be hyperactive in your brain. That's the part of the brain that's involved in fight or flight. So when this is hyperactive, it's going to signal the hypothalamus. And when the hypothalamus is signaled, it's going to release adrenaline and it's going to release cortisol. You know adrenaline, it's up. I don't want to say it's an upper, but it's like
Stimulant,
it's
it
gonna
gets the
make
body
you
fight or flight.
yeah, it's gonna give the body fight or flight. So it's going to induce like heavy breathing, rapid breathing. It's going to induce trembling, sweating, all these things. And then when the cortisol's in there too. So when these two things are released, it's gonna do hyperventilation, high sensory, what I was talking about when like the music was wicked loud. And then it's also gonna affect the prefrontal cortex, which is when your mind can't make a decision. It's like where decision making lives. So when people say they're spiraling, that's what's happening. Like their prefrontal cortex is like working overtime. So they're spiraling, they can't stop it.
Mhm.
Almost like they're having all these intrusive thoughts. Like you go from having a stomach bug to thinking you have a brain tumor. within 10 minutes. And my problem is I look up every symptom.
He's Dr. Google over here. Yeah.
I am a very big looker upper and I can't stop it. I am a looker upper.
The looker
Can't
up.
stop it in the moment. And then I freak myself out because I'm like, oh my God, I did it when I was at the doctor. I did it
I know you
in the
did.
bathroom when I was doing like a urine test. And then it was
They
like,
did ask, they were like, "Are you sure you're not pregnant?" And that is always a scary feeling when you
he was
don't want
listening to my stomach saying, are you sure you're not pregnant? Are you sure? I'm like, do you hear 2 heartbeats in there? Like, why do you keep asking
scary.
me?
Yeah, no, that was valid, I think, to be a little scared, but then you got your period that day, so it was
I
fine.
that day. So um I was thankful for that. But that's like the physiological thing that happens in the brain, along with the vagus nerve and all these things. So different types of anxiety. There's so many different types. There's generalized anxiety disorder, there's panic disorder, there's social anxiety, there's separation anxiety, there's OCD. There's so many different things. Separation anxiety, you kind of hear this in dogs too, because it's not just humans that get anxiety. It's when you're with your dog constantly all the time and then you leave and they're crying out the window the whole like they're
Thank you.
missing you. They see you as a support system, so they don't know how to function when you're gone, which can be related to people too. It's a whole disorder. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah, I think I had some separation anxiety from my mom for a long time, like as a
I
kid.
think I do for my parents because I at the end of Ossipee. So me and Kelly, for people who don't know, we go to Ossipee um for a week. And like 7 days with you, like I don't ever get sick of Ty and his family. Don't ever get sick. Of course I won't get sick of you. I love you. But like at the end of that day, I'm like, I'm really missing my mom. We're
I
an
think it can
hour
go.
away. It's not like I couldn't go see her. She couldn't go see me if anything were to happen. But it's very like, oh my God, like I could never live like far away. Like I couldn't. And
Oh,
that's
yeah,
limiting in so many ways.
it is. I relate heavily, heavily.
Mm.
I feel like, yes, every time it's funny, even though I don't live at home and I haven't lived at home for a little bit, by the end of OSPE, great example, I'm like, I want to go see my mom. Like, I want to go and say hello to my mom. Like, I miss her. I see my mom like every other week, like bi-weekly. My mom's moving down here because she wants to be able to see me more,
I heard.
basically.
I heard.
I was like, I don't think I formally told you yet. She just made this official decision as of last week. So when
John
you have,
John told us at
yeah,
the I was like, oh my
yeah,
God. I was
she's
like,
got
what
it.
the like
She's moving. So, um, I definitely think we have a little bit of separation. That's when I was going to go to Texas. Like I really thought heavily about moving to Texas like a couple years ago. And I was like, I just couldn't do it. I like really thought about it. I told people, I was like, all right, I'm going. And then I was like, I can't, I physically can't, I can't go.
no. I know. That's it's so hard because I feel like I associate it with like, oh, I'm just really family oriented. I'm so close to my family. But I think there's such a big part of that it's separation anxiety playing in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people would cover it up with just, oh, I'm just so close with my family. Like, oh, I could move away. Like, but I couldn't. I know I couldn't.
Right. And
And
then
even when, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sure there's probably like a normal amount of separation anxiety that like you're supposed to have from like people
Yeah.
you know, or, like your family, which is like normal, I guess. But I didn't really think of that before. I'm like, but there's probably a normal amount of separation anxiety.
Exactly. Like I also never lived at college. Well,
Same.
you I think that plays into it too.
Yeah. It was
That's like
when,
the time you go. That's the time you venture out. Even if
right.
you're to a school that was
The nest. Yeah.
great.
No, I didn't. Yeah. So when we moved out, it was hard. I felt very sad when I moved. I was very happy to like do that, but I was very sad to move out of my mom's house. I was like, oh, that's sad.
I had a full panic attack when me and Ty were gonna move into um Auntie T's Fabian's dad's house.
I don't know
We,
if I knew that.
oh really? Yeah, we were gonna move there because he was working at
Really?
Yeah. So we were gonna move there, and it's like 45 to an hour away from where I live.
Okay.
So I Ty almost said like, "Okay, yeah, like I'm gonna move in on Sunday, 2 days from now." Like I was like,
You
"What?"
gave me no time to think about this.
I was like, Okay, I'm just gonna pick up my life and just move."
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it was very, very, very scary for me, and I immediately had a panic attack, and he was like, "It's okay, like, it's okay,
Oh,
we obviously didn't end up going, but
wait. Yeah, when was that you guys were talking about that?
when he started at UNH, so it was because he was commuting all the
Right.
way there, and I'm like, "Geez, like, that's a long drive," and he was like, "Yeah, like, this is going on, like, they're gonna let us live here, blah, blah, blah," and I was like, "Wow, that's so sweet of them.
Right.
That's so sweet of them," but it was just too much for me. I was like, I am terrified to do this."
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
okay.
yeah. So, I think anxiety speaking of relationships, like, we're talking about Ty, we're talking about job, but, um, how anxiety affects relationships, because I know with a lot of people with anxiety, it can affect relationships as, like, trust issues.
Hmm.
This can also play into separation anxiety, where you're so used to being with your boyfriend or with your partner the entire time that when they go out with their friends, it's really scary and you're afraid they're going to like find someone else that they like better than you. And all of those thoughts are normal when you go out, but it gets to a point where you're not letting your partner go out. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Where you're completely restricting them from hanging out with their friends and hanging out with anyone else but you, and that affects the relationship in more
Right.
than I can even tell.
Yeah. That's a good point to bring up is how you living with things, not like specifically you, but like people living with anxiety impacting like the loved ones around you and like the impact on their life. And it can make the relationship more complicated, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or a family, relationship. Definitely. I know for a while, John at one point had some pretty intense anxiety and like depression that he was going through. And I remember that being really hard for me to see him going through that and like not being able to fix it and wanting to fix it so bad. And I think that was really, really hard because I felt terrible. Like I was like, this is, and then it's like, it affects you because then you're feeling, it's a chain of events and reactions there for sure.
Yeah. I think one tip that I would give to someone that is watching someone go through that, you know what I mean? Like as you were watching John go through that, just being able to be there for them and know their coping mechanisms and know what's going to calm them down is a huge, huge part. Like I
Yeah.
said when I was at the party, like she knew exactly what to do. And I
Mhm.
was so grateful for that because even in the moment, I didn't know what to do. I
Right.
wasn't sure, but like having that communication to know what is going on and how to fix it. And this is like you're specifically telling them, this is how you fix it. This is how you're going to calm me down. And that's really, really, really important part to have a conversation about, because if you're in this moment and you're next to someone and you don't know how to calm them down, it's just going to freak them out even more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
And you don't want to say the wrong thing, kind of like Kate
mhm.
said earlier, like relax, like, that doesn't help.
Yeah,
Like,
that's not gonna help anyone because that's just gonna elevate it. That's gonna make everything even so much worse.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, that's one thing. Um, yeah,
Well, I feel like
yeah,
that's pretty solid. I feel like we dove into a lot of good things.
I know, yeah. Oh, one thing I wanted to talk about is how you can educate yourself
Okay, I love that.
on anxiety. There's so many resources out there. There's a ton of resources out there. But there's one movie that I saw on, I think it was Amazon Prime. It was called Turtles All the Way Down or something like that. And it has like if you don't know what anxiety is and you don't know anything about it, or you're kind of like, "Oh, that's you're fine. You're fine." You know what I mean? Watch this movie and see how anxiety and OCD is depicted, and you are going to get a very inside look of what goes on in the brain. Because when I even watched the trailer, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is exactly what goes through my head. This is a very good depiction of like what someone that's suffering with anxiety or suffering with OCD, something like that, is going through, which was really, really crazy. Um, Other ways you can talk to someone with anxiety and be like, hey, what goes on in your brain? Like, just get their opinion on it. Like, because everyone's kind of it's going to be different with everyone, but getting different opinions from other people and then cultivating that for education is so important, because just kind of expanding your mind to this whole new world that you didn't know was here, that you didn't know people were suffering from,
Yeah.
is so important.
I agree. I think talking like right to the source and like I'm very lucky. I have a lot of clients with a lot of anxiety, but I do. And I think what's been really helpful and like this kind of started during my internship and stuff was like learning the levels of anxiety that someone can live with, how it
Mhm.
impacts them as a whole, how it impacts their ability to feed themselves, how it impacts their ability to view themselves. It's like it impacts so many things. And like if you can better understand how to almost like interact with that person, support that person, you can be a really vital part in their support system and their toolbox. And I feel like when I'm talking with clients kind of about food related anxiety or like emotional eating, which is kind of intertwined with some of this,
Mhm.
I try to encourage them to open up the space for conversation if they have a significant other, you know, to kind of let them know like what they're going through so they can be a part of their support system and their toolbox. Because even just being able to tell somebody, you know, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kate, like just being able to tell somebody that you're going through a high moment of anxiety and you feel super off and like, I just need you to talk to me right now. And maybe it's about something totally unrelated, but like be able to just be that person that they can talk to. Do you feel
Absolutely.
like that's helpful for you, is like talking it out?
Yeah, like even I'm kind of in the same boat what you were saying. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
lucky to have like a mom with anxiety, but like obviously like you have clients with anxiety. I have my mom that I can talk to. I have my sister I can talk to. I have my best friend who I can talk to. It's like all these people that are actually going through the same thing have more insight, and like they know what I'm going through, so they know how to support me. And I think for relationships like a partner, sometimes it can be difficult because they can't really understand, they can't really grasp of what's going on in your head, and you're trying to explain it the best you can, and they're just not really understanding. So it's hard to explain how you're feeling to someone that doesn't experience that.
Sure.
And I think that takes a little bit of a longer conversation than just being like, "Hey, I'm having anxiety. Can you like talk to me about something else?" Like then there's questions being asked, like, "Why are you having anxiety? Why I just told you I don't want to talk about it, so can we talk about something else? I just want you to know how I feel right now." And I
Yeah.
think that's a really big part, is having someone that you know has gone through it too, so they know how to best support you in your way.
Yeah. That relatability is huge, I feel.
Mm,
Just like knowing and like personal experience. Like, oh, here's what helped me in that moment. Like rather
right.
than talking to somebody that has no idea and maybe isn't I don't want to say not open to learning more about how to be a better support system when somebody is having anxiety
Just
like that.
kind of like
Yeah,
unaware of the situation.
definitely. What would be your three top tips, Kate, to managing anxiety? What have you found to be helpful for you
Um, Prioritizing self-care at least once a week.
once a week?
That's a big one for me, at least once a week. I know journaling helps a lot of people. Getting those thoughts out of your head, almost taking the thoughts, putting them on the paper and putting the paper away.
Yeah.
Um, Another one is being around family. That's being around family and also being outside. So
Yes.
this past week, I I went to Walmart and had an absolute panic attack because the fluorescent lights were like flickering just a little bit, and I had to like run out of the store basically. I was very I thought I was going to pass out. I was so scared. once I got outside, those feelings like immediately diminished.
Yeah.
Then that tricked my brain into like, oh, you're not gonna be anxious when you go outside, so just keep going outside.
Okay.
Just keep being outside. And that really, really, really helped me. And I sat the first day I was feeling almost 100% better.
Yeah.
I was sitting by the pool and I said, "Wow, this is what I needed. I needed vitamin D. I needed like calming music. I needed my mom. I needed my
Yeah, my mom. I
pool in
love
front of me. Like I just needed all of that."
that.
So, yeah, I think definitely for me being outside was a huge tip that I hope that other people like can experience. Be like, "Oh my god, being outside is just going to like immediately change your life in that moment."
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Being able to get outside in the sun in like nice or decent weather, here in New England, we got to take what we get, but like
Yeah,
it
right.
makes such a difference. Like I am such a happier person in the summertime, and I there is no doubt that it is strongly correlated to the sunshine. Like I am a much happier, and this fall and winter, I tried my best to make the conscious effort to get outside, even in the freezing cold, just to be in the sun. And even that still felt better than like avoiding being outside and like walking on the treadmill, even in like 10-degree weather. Like it's better to get outside. So like you can get outside.
Outside's always gonna be there. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's definitely a big one.
I love that. I feel like for me, I've found success with guided meditation, just 5-10 minutes. I can't do longer than that. It's a little too
I get
much.
bored. I get very I need to change things up very quickly. So like even like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
like five
once I
minutes.
get the routine in, once I get like whatever they're saying, I can turn it off and like start doing it myself.
Yeah. If 5 minutes when you're meditating feels like a long time, or it can. So it's like you don't need much. And I think when people hear the term like meditation, everyone thinks like and like that's like what they
Yeah,
think.
it's
It
not that.
doesn't need to be like that. It's like literally just like calm your breathing, chill for a sec. And like if something's walking you through it, I think it's easier. Cause like for me, if it's just me trying to meditate myself, my mind is totally elsewhere. Like I need
That
somebody.
takes skill. It takes a lot of skill to be
It
able to do that.
does.
I
It's a
would suggest
lot.
doing guided meditation for a while before you even try to meditate
Yeah.
yourself. You know what I mean?
So meditation was great. I find just talking to people, I'm a kind of like if I'm feeling off, like I got to talk to you about it. Like that's one thing I feel like pretty good about is talking about my feelings now, even though I don't love. I'll talk to only a select few people, like Kate or like my mom or like my best friend or John. But being able to talk about it is helpful. I feel like, and that just kind of like grounds you because people are like, oh, it's gonna be okay, and like even just hearing that is like, oh yeah, thanks, that's good. So.
Yeah, right.
So
Exactly. Those are good tips.
amazing. I love it. Well, Kate, thank you for sharing your vulnerability from this past week. And I'm so glad that you're feeling so much better.
Thank
And
you.
I think this will be an episode that really resonates with a lot of people. A lot of
Yeah.
people.
I think this is important to talk about. I think this needs to be obviously more talked about in
Yeah.
society because a lot of people don't know what's going on. A lot of people don't really know what this is.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so
So,
glad that we could do a little epi on it. It's good. So amazing.
yeah.
Well, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah.